Life can change in an instant. Sometimes the people we trust misunderstand us, and sometimes the world misjudges us. Yet, even in the darkest moments, kindness can open doors we never knew existed. Today's story follows Amaka, a young girl whose journey from hardship to hope will inspire you deeply. Before we begin, remember to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss our uplifting stories. Now, let's begin. Amaka, a bright 18-year-old village girl, stood beside her father at his small mechanic workshop, a place filled with the familiar smells of engine oil and worn-out tires. Her father, known affectionately as Papa Chicky, lay half-submerged beneath the rusty shell of a car, humming a cheerful tune that echoed off the corrugated iron walls. A smile played on Amaka's lips as she watched him work. "Papa," she teased, her voice light and clear, "if you stay under this car any longer, it might just swallow you whole." He chuckled, the sound muffled by the vehicle's undercarriage. Wiggling out with a triumphant grunt, he wiped his greasy hands on a rag and grinned at her. "If it swallows me, it will spit me right back out. I'm the only one in this village who knows its stubbornness." Their life was simple, woven with threads of deep, unwavering love. Papa Chicky wasn't just a mechanic. He was a dreamer, and all his dreams were for his daughter. "One day, Amaka," he'd often say, his eyes gazing at a distant horizon only he could see, "you will smell books and perfume, not this engine oil. You will work in a big office with a fan that blows a cool breeze, just like the rich people on television." She would blush, feeling a mix of embarrassment and warmth. "Papa, leave all this your talk," she'd reply softly. But he would turn serious, his gaze steady and full of conviction. "My last money, I will use it to send you to school. You will rise, my daughter. You will rise above all this." Those were the moments she treasured most, the ones that fueled her own quiet ambitions. Their evenings were spent by the flickering light of a kerosene lamp, sharing a simple meal of roasted yam. She would read to him from her tattered books until his gentle snores signaled he had fallen asleep, a peaceful smile etched on his face. The morning everything changed arrived without warning, cloaked in the pre-dawn stillness. Amaka woke with a jolt, a cold sense of unease creeping over her. The usual sound of her father's morning cough was absent. The silence in their small hut was heavy, unnatural. He lay on his mat, unusually still. "Papa," she whispered, shaking him softly. Her voice trembled as she tried again, her touch more urgent. "Papa?" There was no response. Neighbors, drawn by her rising panic, gathered quickly. A kind elderly woman, her face etched with a lifetime of joys and sorrows, gently checked him and then let out a long, mournful sigh that shattered the morning air. Amaka's heart didn't just break. It splintered into 1,000 pieces. The community rallied, helping with the funeral arrangements as the village mourned the loss of a good man. But when the final rites were over and the mourners had dispersed, Amaka was left utterly alone, the one person who believed in her dreams now gone forever. Her uncle, Emmanuel, a man with a large family and a small income, took her into his home. Amaka, desperate to prove her worth and not be a burden, threw herself into the household chores. She cooked, swept, fetched water from the stream, and helped her young cousins with their tasks, her hands and heart working tirelessly. But soon, the quiet whispers began, not with malice, but with the slow-growing poison of misunderstanding. "She reads too much," one person would murmur. "She's too quiet," another would add. Maybe the stress in their home was too much for her father. Amaka tried to block out the words, focusing on her grief and her work. Then one evening, she overheard her uncle speaking to his wife in hushed tones. "That girl is carrying too much burden," he said, his voice laced with concern. "The worry is affecting her. She should rest from so much thinking." His wife tried to defend her, explaining it was just sorrow, but the seed of misunderstanding had taken root. People in the village began to look at her differently, assuming she brought bad luck because hardships seemed to follow her. That night, Amaka cried herself to sleep, her tears soaking the thin pillow. The pressure mounted when a traveling spiritual counselor visited the village. Her uncle, hoping to bring peace to his home, invited the man to pray. He didn't intend to accuse Amaka, but the community, gathering outside the compound, saw it differently. Their whispers grew louder, their assumptions turning into accusations. Amaka tried to explain that she was simply grieving, that there was nothing more to it. The counselor, a gentle and wise man, spoke to her kindly. "My daughter, sorrow can confuse people. You are not the problem. You just need time to heal." But the gossip had become a suffocating cloud. Feeling like an unbearable weight on her uncle's family, Amaka made a heart-wrenching decision. Overwhelmed by the constant pressure, her uncle had suggested that she might need a new start elsewhere. She wasn't chased away, but she left on her own accord, her heart heavier than ever before. She found shelter in an unfinished building at the edge of the village, a skeletal structure open to the elements. The nights were cold, and the rain leaked through the gaps in the roof, but she would whisper to the dark sky, "Papa, give me strength." Each morning, she rose before dawn, offering her help around the village for a few coins or a piece of food. She fetched water for families, cleaned their compounds, and weeded small farms. Some people, swayed by the rumors, avoided her. Others, seeing her quiet determination, quietly gave her small jobs. Her hands grew rough and her feet cracked, but she never stopped. One evening, as she returned from the stream, balancing a pot of water on her head, she saw an old blind man about to step into a ditch. Motorcycles sped past, kicking up clouds of dust, and a group of children laughed nearby, oblivious to his plight. Without a second thought, Amaka rushed forward. She gently took his arm and guided him to safety. The man, holding a simple walking stick and wearing dark glasses, turned his head toward her. "Thank you," he said softly. "Not many people stop for me." She offered a small, tired smile. Everyone deserves help. She continued on her way, expecting nothing in return. But the blind man stood there for a long moment, listening to the sound of her fading footsteps, a sense of her profound kindness settling deep in his heart. Days later, her young cousin ran to find her, saying her uncle wanted to see her. Cautiously, Amaka went to the compound. To her surprise, she found the blind man she had helped sitting with her uncle. Her uncle introduced him as Brother Jude, a humble and respectful man with a soft-spoken manner. Jude explained his presence. "I came to thank the young lady who helped me. I lost my family years ago and have lived alone since. When she helped me, I prayed for guidance, and I felt a sense of peace. I would like to get to know her more." Her uncle, misunderstanding Jude's polite request as an immediate proposal for marriage, clapped his hands in excitement. "She is ready. She will be a wonderful wife." Amaka gasped, her eyes wide with shock. "I didn't agree to anything yet." Jude immediately raised a hand to calm the situation. "My daughter, you are under no pressure. If you are uncomfortable, please say so. I simply admired your kindness." But it was too late. Rumors of a proposal were already spreading through the village, and a crowd began to gather outside. Her uncle insisted that marriage would give her the stability she needed. Overwhelmed by the community's pressure, isolated and exhausted, Amaka eventually agreed. It was not a choice made from fear, but from a desperate hope for a new beginning. Jude, sensing her reluctance, gently asked one more time, "Are you sure?" "I don't want you to be unhappy." She just nodded quietly, unable to find her voice. Their wedding was a simple affair. There was no music, no feast, just a small gathering under the shade of a large mango tree. Amaka wore a faded, borrowed gown, and Jude promised to treat her with respect. She, in turn, promised to walk with him in patience. The community watched with a mix of opinions, but the ceremony concluded peacefully. When they arrived at Jude's small, clean home, he told her gently, "You will sleep on the bed. I will sleep on the mat on the floor." She looked at him, and for the first time in a long time, she felt a flicker of safety. "No," she replied firmly. "We will share the bed." That night, for the first time in months, she slept soundly, without fear. Amaka and Jude settled into a quiet, peaceful life together. She cooked his meals, and he listened intently as she read aloud from her books. She became his eyes, guiding him carefully around the village, and he became her encouragement, urging her to keep studying. One evening, Jude revealed something that would change their lives once more. "I received word," he began, "that a doctor in the city believes my eyes might be treatable. I have saved a little money. The journey will be long. Will you come with me?" A genuine smile spread across Amaka's face. "Anywhere," she replied without hesitation. They traveled to the city, a world away from their village. The roads were dusty, the buses noisy, and the buildings so tall they seemed to touch the sky. Amaka was amazed by it all. She noticed that Jude navigated the bustling city with a strange familiarity, but she didn't question it. At the clinic, the doctor examined Jude's eyes and delivered hopeful news. "Your chances are very good," he said, "but you will need time, rest, and a great deal of emotional support." Amaka promised to stay by Jude's side through everything. Days turned into weeks as Jude underwent treatment. His eyes were covered with bandages, and Amaka became his constant companion. One bright morning, the doctor finally removed the dressings. Light flooded into the room. Jude blinked slowly, his focus sharpening. He turned his head and saw Amaka's face clearly for the very first time. "Amaka?" he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. She gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "You can see?" He nodded, tears of overwhelming joy forming in his newly opened eyes. Then he revealed the full truth. "My blindness? It was partial and developing over time. I was never fully blind. I could see shapes and colors, but not details. I never pretended. I simply didn't know if my sight would ever return permanently. I didn't tell people because I was afraid of being seen differently, of being pitied. But you treated me with pure kindness when you thought I had nothing to offer. For that, I am forever grateful." Amaka was too shocked to speak, and then she broke into tears of profound relief. A few days later, Jude took her to a large, modern office building in the heart of the city. She looked around, confused by the polished floors and busy employees. He turned to her, a gentle smile on his face. "My late father owned this company. I left this life years ago after my eyesight began to fail. I chose a quiet village life instead, but your kindness, it brought me back to living." He led her to an office and showed her a small scholarship program the company ran for underprivileged youth. "I want you to study again," he said softly. "Not because I can help you, but because it is your dream. And it was your father's wish." Amaka cried softly, tears of hope and gratitude streaming down her face. In that moment, she saw her future, clear and bright, a future she thought had been lost forever. In life, judgment may come easily, but kindness creates miracles. Amaka's journey was not about hardship, it was about heart. And the girl the world misunderstood became a woman who rose above every storm.